Hey, everybody, welcome back to another Anxiety Wise episode. I have my beautifully patient wife, Sarah, with me. Today, we're going to be doing a podcast, a conversation on family dynamics and communication. It seems to have been brought up a lot lately, both with clients and just with friends and people that we communicate with. About the dynamics in their household, how the communication might not be as effective, and or maybe they're struggling with their kids. A lot in the teenage kids space, not that there isn't stuff with the younger kids. And we're not in any way going to be telling you how to parent your children or how you need to communicate with your wife or your husband, whoever. We're really going to be sharing some mistakes, some tips and tricks that we've learned that you can implement. And this is outside of any work that we do when it comes to the emotions and anxiety and trauma and all that. There's just going to be some patterns that you can change or things that you can implement in your communication style with your family, the people that you're the closest with, you live with, or that seems like there can be often intensity when it comes to the level of emotion with those folks. As kids, we tend to model our parents' behavior and their communication styles. And I think if you look inward, you'll probably go, yeah, I got some of my mom in me or my dad in me, and that will come out. But today's really just Sarah and I have kids from 26. My oldest is 26, then 24. Sarah and I have kids down to 9 years old, 14, 13, and 9. So we're in the teenage stage. We've had the little kids. We got the older kids that are launched. So genuinely, when we're just sharing from things that we've learned and that we've learned as a husband and wife. I will say, and I want you to tell me if you agree with this, Sarah, but the one area probably of our marriage that has been the easiest, which in my mind is crazy, but has been the easiest, has been communication for the two of us. Would you agree that we communicate?
We've said that from first day we met 15, 16 years ago, is communication has always just flowed easily. I don't know if maybe just coming into it a little more seasoned, having had some bad communication experiences with relationships that you look at it differently and a little more mutual respect and honoring each other with our words the best we could, even though we both had some serious emotions that were jamming us up at times. The communication has always been pretty steady.
Yeah, and that's why I think this is actually impactful, is that even though we feel, and I do believe that we've communicated very well with each other, we still have shifted so much and changed so much in how we communicate. And we've seen a dramatic shift with our kids and how they communicate, not just with us, but outwardly with adults. We hear from other adults, professionals, friends, people will come work in our house and they will pull us aside and they will make a point to say, you guys have amazing children. They're respectful. They look you in the eyes when they speak. They shake your hand. They actually engage in conversation. And these are our younger ones that are 14 to 9. All of them do. And I don't think it would be that way had we not started to learn some of this years ago and started to implement it in our marriage. So, Sarah, again, jump in and tell me if you disagree. But I think that personally, I feel that when mom and dad, that part of the family is communicating respectfully and in a healthy way, that if mom and dad are okay, the kids are going to be okay or decent.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
100%. They're going to model your behavior, number one, in their future relationships. So if it's hot and heated every time, unfortunately, that's what they're going to learn and carry on into their future lives. But then we even see it with them conversing with each other. You know, we definitely cut down on the sibling bickering that used to be
that's
crazy. It's, they're still going to have little squabbles here and there, but there's no yelling, there's no loudness. It's just like a little tiff, and then they're done and they're over it. And that has changed since we have calmed our communication down too. With each other and with them.
I think that, there's a piece to this. There's literally no room for sarcasm in our house.
Yes.
We don't do passive aggressive. We don't do sarcasm. Do we slip up and do those things from time to time? Yes, we do. But we all have permission to call each other out on it. Like, hey, are you trying to be helpful or hurtful?
And our son Fisher has called me out on it. And I smile and I go, "I'm sorry, buddy. You're absolutely right." Because and I have to be okay with taking that correction from him because we said as a family unit we will call each other out on that. So yeah, hard habit to break sometimes, but
Yeah.
very beneficial for communication to just get rid of that.
Well, but the kids, they know me as the leader of our family. I'll tell them, you can correct us, you can call that out, but you're going to do it in a respectful manner. And the sarcasm, what is the root of sarcasm? It's really you're hurting emotionally. There's something inside of you that's frustrated, upset. You don't feel as good. You feel stupid. You feel frustrated, whatever it is. So you'll say something sarcastic that's got a little bit of truth to it rather than just be able to express how you feel. So that's going to tie into some of the things that we're going to discuss on emotions and way to bring emotional temperature down. Because at the end of the day, you are negotiating, whether it's with your spouse or with your children. So how do you become the best negotiator possible? Because if you are the best negotiator possible in your family dynamic's going to be more peaceful, enjoyable, and you're ultimately going to win. So you can be selfish in this aspect. Become a great negotiator and your family will benefit from it. So one of the tidbits that I like to share with people that I learned in a book that I read that was just fantastic is the 7-38-55 rule. So this was actually from a FBI hostage negotiator talked about this, but he literally shared, and it blew my mind. When you communicate with somebody, and sometimes I'll ask parents that I'm working with our processes when it comes to the trauma and anxiety, I'll ask them this question. When you're speaking to your spouse or to your kids or to a coworker and you're communicating with them, what do you think is the biggest part of the communication you're having with them? And they're like, well, it's what I'm saying. And I'm like, yep, I used to think the same thing. The truth is, the words that you use in the communication, the person's brain is only taking in 7% of that. When you think of 100% being the total amount of communication, 7% are the words. So you're like, yeah, right, Nick, that doesn't make sense. Make that make sense for me. Well, here's the deal. I could say to Sarah, man, aren't you beautiful? And I look at her and I just smiling and I'm giving her the I love you eyes, right? But if I'm, say she's having a rough day and I'm trying to cheer her up, but I say something like, aren't you beautiful? Right? Just the dismissiveness, the tone of my voice, those other things let you know that what I'm saying, the words don't mean what they mean. So that alone should tell you that tone of voice and physicality are actually more important than the words you use. And most of us don't even give a thought to that. When we get loud, when we get angry, when we got resting, you know what face, you know, and the person's already triggered or already on edge. So 38% of your communication is the tone of your voice. Hey, I would really love it if we could go to lunch today. Versus, I'd love it if we could get to lunch today. That tone of my voice, it's like, oh man, I want to smack him, right? So tone of your voice and then your physicality. Are you leaning in if somebody's telling you something that's important to them? Or are you sitting back with your feet up on the table dismissive?
Or with your face in the phone.
Yeah.
When someone's talking to you.
Oh, and that never happens in today's world. Yeah.
Every family at a restaurant these days.
Bodie and I literally just went out to lunch and there was 3 other men at the bar and all 3 of them had their face down texting the whole time we were eating lunch. I was like, wow, we're so disconnected. So I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but it does tie into a little bit. What is how do we most communicate in today's world, Sarah?
A text and email.
Texting. So think about what I just shared with you. And then think about the fact that most of our communication is via text or email. I don't want to call them. They're probably busy, so I'll just text them. It's like saying, you know what? I love them, but they're not really that important, so I'm only going to give them 7% of the information. Okay. If they're important to you and what you're sharing for information is important or matters or could cause conflict, you should pick up the phone and at bare minimum, talk to them on a phone. If you can FaceTime them or do it in person, extremely important. We don't text those kind of conversations it will be text, hey, what are you doing later? Hey, can we do this? Can you pick something up from the store? Generic texting like that. But with my family or with a client or somebody that's important, I'll just pick up the phone and call or say, hey, when you have a second, just call me so we can discuss this. Because otherwise, you're trying to have a conversation. It's like trying to get in a fight and you literally have both your arms behind your back and one leg is up. So you're bouncing around on one foot trying to headbutt somebody. That's crazy. But that's literally how
we are
it is.
Changed our communication.
Yep. So like if you have teenagers and you're like, hey, you need to be home by 9, they're hearing your angry yell at them voice. They're like, oh, mom's yelling at me again. I need to be home by 9. Versus call them, say, hey, I love you. I really love it. Would you please get home by 9 tonight? Or, hey, you can choose to get home at 9 or you could choose to come home later. But if you come home later, I'm taking your phone. You choose. Giving them a choice.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have control yet, did we?
No.
All right, we'll get in that in a second. But so just to recap that, for this is just a tip, trick, tidbit, something for you guys to know if you didn't know this already. 7% of your communication with somebody is the words, 38% is the tone of your voice, and 55% is your physicality. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to go into any kind of important conversation and literally remove 93% of the communication the person would normally receive.
Right.
That's crazy. And if it's my wife or my children and I'm living with them, it's even more important that I get that right. Otherwise, you just waste more time later trying to explain what you really meant versus the text.
And maybe we can talk on that about what can you do to change the tone or change the physicality if maybe that's an area, if you're having a conversation in person, so we should be hitting all 100%, but maybe the way that your tone is or the physicality of how you're approaching it, what are some tips or tricks that people can implement to increase the effectiveness?
Well, self-awareness. So you can ask somebody, hey, when I speak to you, do you feel relaxed? Like, is there anything intense about me when I speak? Somebody tells you, yeah, your voice is like, if you got a really deep voice, for example, if you're a man who has a big beard and you're a big dude and you got a deep voice, and when you speak, your tone of your voice alone, people are gonna be like, ooh, is this like, do I need to be worried here? So if you know that about you, hey, get smaller, right? Like if you're a big, tall, big guy, well, hey, if you're going to talk to your kids, come in and sit down. Bring yourself down to eye level. Soften your voice. Hey, I know that we've been having some struggles here, but can I talk to you? Just that alone is going to put the person that you're speaking to at ease. It's going to bring their emotional temperature down. If you're somebody that has that resting, face that a lot of people say, first off, I would tell you, if you're somebody that's been told that, or you say that about yourself.
Can I share how you would know that? If you go through like candid photos or candid videos of maybe something was happening or some kid grabbed a phone and took pictures of you and you see that resting face on yourself in the middle of the moment, it's you.
As she's sitting here with the most beautiful smile ever on her face. Like Sarah has like the most amazing smile.
But when I'm not in a great mood, I definitely scowl and it's bad. And yeah, it's
I would say
it was.
I would say it's when she's not ready to be photographed, because when she is, she should be a model. Like, oh, look at me with the perfect smile. But yes, you don't realize that. What I will say though, on an emotional level, because of the work that we do, a lot of people that have that though, not all, but a lot of those people can be carrying things like resentment, anger, frustration, trauma. And you may not understand this. A lot of times I can see it with folks and they're blown away when I'll ask them, hey, have you been struggling with like these emotions or even depression and suicidal thoughts? And they're like, they'll start tearing up and they'll start crying. Like, how'd you know? Because people don't want to walk around with that resting, face. They want to be cheery and happy. This is why folks that come to work, come to us to work on the anxiety and trauma and all that stuff. They know they don't feel good. And usually I'll say to them, yeah, you probably had your people that love you the most going, hey, cheer up, get over it, look on the bright side. And you probably thought, can I punch you in the throat? Because I've told myself that 8 million times. With somebody that has that kind of maybe harder outer edge, they don't want to walk around being the heavy or the angry, but they're carrying something. So just a caveat, be aware of that. But if that is you, and obviously you love the people around you or care about them or your work and you have good relationships, call it out. Just say, look, sometimes I look this way. It's not my intention. If you see it, if you can just nicely say something to me or ask me, hey, are you upset or is something wrong? Give them permission to ask you, is something wrong? And then when you know that about yourself, if you're going to go into a heavy conversation or in a conversation where there might be some intense emotions, prepare yourself. Look in the mirror for a minute. Soften your look. Maybe a little bit of a smile. Walk in. Get down on their level if you're a bigger person. But just your physicality will bring that emotional temperature down in the room, and the tone of your voice, the speed in which you speak. This is something I still work on today. I get excited, passionate, and amped up, and I'll often get talking too quick. And sometimes I'll catch myself in the middle. I just did a second ago. I'm like, I'm getting a little too quick here. And I'm like, slow down, reel it in, Nick. Sarah
Well,
doesn't.
I do it with the kids. If I'm kind of frustrated maybe and I'm trying to explain something, I get really fast in my words. And the kids look at me like I have three heads because they can't process what I've just said because it came out so fast and maybe a little too loud. So,
You just gave me a movie moment. I think it's Evan Almighty or Bruce Almighty, where the guy that plays Evan, the news anchor guy, he's standing there. Jim Carrey, he's getting ready to do his news anchor thing, and he's like, "In other news," and as he starts to speak, he goes, and Jim Carrey's messing with him. I pictured my kids seeing that when Sarah gets
that's
amped up.
probably what they think of. Yeah.
Like, Mom, you got a
no
demon.
idea what you said, Mom, because you just said it too fast, too loud, and just with too much intensity.
So we're kind of tapping on that thing of how to bring emotional intensity down. So I'm going to share a couple of things that I learned. When I met Sarah, my daughters were already almost teenagers. So bless your heart, being a stepmother. I've never been a step parent. I've been a child of a divorced family. I've gone through divorce, but I've never had to do that. So I can't say I know what that feels like to be a step parent. I can see how it can be difficult. So a lot of the conversations and the deeper intensity moments, if I had them, I'll use my oldest daughter, Haley, who is awesome. I love this kid. She's happily married, gave me my first beautiful grandbaby. As a teenager, she was both beautiful and at times, like, I don't know, a creature from some lagoon I'd never seen. Like, what happened to my teenage girl here? But this is the deal. I would sometimes tell her what she needs to do. And I'm going to tell you that if you ever tell somebody what they need to do, if you hear yourself say you need to, or you really need to, or what you guys need to, if you say that, take left or right hand and smack yourself right upside the head. Be like, that was dumb. I'm going to start over. We will still slip and do that, but I'm going to share why that is so bad. Now, first off, even children do not want to be told what they need to do. None of us like it. Right? Don't tell me what I need to do. Give me your thoughts, your advice, what worked for you. Don't tell me what I need to do. So from a neuroscience standpoint or a parental raising kids standpoint, this is where this really comes into play. If you're a kid that grows up in a household constantly being told what you need to do, you have no control. You need to clean your room. You need to be down at dinner by 5. You need to be home by 8. You need to. That's all you hear is you need to. If you grow up in that kind of household where you have no control, what do you think you're going to try to do later in life when you're an adult?
Over control.
Has anybody ever been in a relationship with a woman or a man where they are over controlling? Ask that person, and you might be looking at that person. You might be elbowing them right now and be like, oh, yeah, that's you. Well, I would say look inward first, but then think about that. Here's one small shift. If you're somebody that has children or plans to, even if your kids are older, right? We do this to our kids when they get in their 20s, 30s, 40s. You really need to blah, blah, blah. So I'll use Haley as an example. She would come home and tell me how her teachers, well, I had this teacher and he's blah, 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 blah. And I'd be like, you need to just suck it up. Just put your head down, work hard. Don't worry about the teacher. I didn't do anything other than tell her what she needs to do. Now, my advice might be good advice in the sense of we're like, yeah, well, that's what you do need to do. You can't control other people. But she'd walk away, go upstairs, text her friends how much of a jerk her dad was. So after butting heads enough times, and I did some of my own deep dive learning on this, when I got this piece of advice, it shifted everything with me and the kids. Haley come home, same kind of conversation. I would reflect her feeling. So if you're taking notes, I would write that down. Reflection of feeling or mirroring. When I would say to Haley, I'd hear her out and I'd say, man, kid, that's got to be frustrating. Yeah, Dad, it is. And I just watched her emotional temperature come down a little bit. So she went from a 10 to like an 8. I let her go, blah, 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 talk about all these classes. She's so tired. In my head, I'm like, you're so tired. Oh, wait till you have to adult. Oh my God, you got school, you got English class, a math class. It's so rough in my head, right? But when it's still real stress for her as a kid. So I would hear her say this. And then the second thing I would say is like, man, it's got to be overwhelming. I'm basically reflecting or saying the emotion or feeling that I'm seeing with her. Yeah, it is. It's really overwhelming. I'm like, man. And I just sit there quiet for a minute and suddenly her emotional temperature is like a 4 or 5. Now we can deal with that. So then she'd go, well, Dad, have you ever had a situation like that? Yeah, actually, I remember having this teacher. This was the scenario. We really struggled with, I struggled with community, whatever the lesson was. And I would share it and how it either turned out well or not so well for me. And she'd be like, wow, that makes all the sense in the world. And she'd go away. And I'm like, holy cow. And she's texting her friends how smart her dad was. I'm like, that worked. I didn't tell her what she needed to do, but I sat in the pocket. I reflected her feeling, and this can work with your spouse, your coworkers, anyone. Reflect how they're feeling first before you start telling somebody what they should or need or ought to do. If you say those things, catch yourself and go, that's probably not the most effective way to get the outcome that I hope for, which is really a negotiation. Emma, at one point, not long after this, shared with me, um, we had the same kind of conversation and she just looked at me funny and she's like, Dad, you should be the president of the United States. And I was like, waiting, I'm like looking at her. Is she being sarcastic? But I heard her tone of voice, our physicality. She was being genuine. And I'm thinking to myself, have you met some of the presidents we've had? And so I didn't really say that, but I'm like, me, president, I'm the last guy that would ever be president of the United States. But the fact that my teenage daughter thought highly enough of me in that moment with the way that I was speaking to her, engaging her, the information I was sharing with her, that's insane to me. Mm-hmm. Like it just blew me away. To this day, I still think about it. I'm like, that is crazy. And imagine if you can communicate on a level with your child that makes them look at you like, wow, you got it figured out, especially when they're teenagers. It's just difficult. Mm-hmm. So again, that's a lesson learned by us. We're not telling you what you need to do with your kids, but if you want a better outcome with your spouse or with your children at home, get yourself ready to listen and then reflect their feeling. And then when you're ready, if you want to share something, ask them the question. Can I share something with you? Yeah. Think about how many times you'll be telling something to somebody and you're not even barely done. And they're like, well, I remember this time.
Tell you about that.
You're
ask you for that opinion. Yeah.
Right. But if I say, wow, Sarah, that's a rough day. You got to be overwhelmed. And she goes, yeah. And I say, honey, can I share something with you that I remember being shared with me? Mm-hmm. Sure. She knows that I just listened to her because I reflected how she's feeling and I asked her a question. Can I, or would it be okay if I shared something with you? If she's like, no, I'm not done yet. Cool. All right, keep going. But we often do that because a lot of us, especially men, I'm going to beat up on the men right now. We want to fix things. We want to fix our women, fix our kids, fix our relationship. And I'm not saying that comes from a bad heart, but I think often we do that. And women will do this too. But with men, I think it's a little more prevalent. Maybe that's not fair to say, but I think it is. Maybe it's because
it seems to be just from conversations.
Yeah. I think women are better at just hearing somebody out. They might share their own story, but there's a little more of an emotional thing there. I think with men, it's like, I just want to fix the problem.
Just be done with it. Yeah.
Right. I want to take care of it. So for the men, I would say that. And for anybody, I would say that. Ask that question and then lean into it. So
let's dive into using how and what questions.
Ooh, what about that is important to you?
It's a great question. What is important is that they're very effective words that you could use to communicate with someone rather than a why question.
Well, how could I make this conversation better by going into that?
By doing what you do. Don't put me on the spot.
I was trying to give an illustration, but she could have been like, well, if you share these things, it'll probably allow individuals to self-reflect before they puke out their information.
He's got the gift of words. I did not get that gift.
She's got the gift of the most amazing smile ever. No. So, all right, let me share this.
It's helped us a ton with the kids and with each other. That's all I was focusing on.
Can I share the story that still cracks me up to this day about us?
Of course.
All right, so I was going to go heli skiing with Emma. I think was it last year or the year before? Year before.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
And I said to Sarah, like kind of out of the cuff, I was just thinking about it. Emma was texting me. I was like, hey, I'm going to go heli skiing with Emma. Remember that moment with the kids, the Bruce Almighty thing? All of a sudden, it's like Sarah's possessed. What do you mean? What are you going to do? How are you going to do it?
My fact finder brain is going to the schedule, the money, the time away, the work, the dogs, the kids. Like I can't process what he's just said because my head immediately goes into solving the problem.
Did you hear that? So it's not just men. She's trying to solve the problem, but she's trying to solve it from I need all the facts and data perspective. But she literally started just puking stuff out back at me. And I'm looking at her and I've ripped out the emotion of resentment, thank God, because that would have usually shut me down. I'd have gotten resentful and be like, are you freaking kidding me? Why is this a big deal? I just want to go snowboarding with my daughter. This is not a big issue. I didn't say I'm going tomorrow. I'm just letting you know this is something I plan on doing or wanting to do. Can we talk about it? And your emotion just went from a 2 to an 8. So I'm looking at her and I'm like, this is just weird. And then I remembered this tip, a how or what question. I looked at Sarah and I said, hey, honey, how can I make this better for us? You'd have thought that I popped her head off her shoulders. She was like, well, I don't know. Well, I guess it's not that big a deal. Just book a ticket and tell me when you're going. I was like, that worked. Oh my God, that worked. This is insane how well that worked. So when you ask a person in that scenario, when I asked Sarah, how can I make this better for us? I'm not telling her what she needs to think. She needs to get over it. It's not that big a deal. I'm not dismissing her. I am giving her the illusion of control here and going, how can I make this better for us? In which turn, she turns inward in her brain and goes, well, how can he make this better for us? And she starts thinking about it from that angle. It literally takes you out of the middle of the conversation. And she's like, well, you're right. It's not that big a deal. Just book a ticket and go. I'm like, wow, like this blew me away, guys. So how can I make this better for us is a great tool to use, especially, look, if you're in a relationship where there is a lot of sarcasm, you get defensive really easy.
I would say teenagers getting sarcastic or short with their parents, asking them that question.
All right. And then the next one. So I'll tee up another one, a what question. So Sarah, pretend you're one of our kids and you want to go out late with friends or something. Give me something a typical, let's just say teenager would say.
Yeah. My friends are going out. I'm going with them. I need the car.
Want to see your friends? Okay. And you threw me for a loop there for a second. So you got me a little off kilter. But where I'm going with this is the what about this is important to you question. So probably I should have used something more Sarah and I. It would have been an easier one. So
let a teenager that goes out.
Right. You're not an adult that goes out. Like I have to kick you out. Go do something. Like get out of the house so I can have some alone time for 5 minutes. But no, with let's say your spouse says, hey, we really need to get this done. That's a great one. Because number one, your spouse is coming to you saying you really need to get this done, or we really need to get this done. Number one, you're probably going to trigger a little bit because you're going to be like, oh, now you're telling me what we need to do. Okay, well, I got 50 things in my head I haven't told you that we need to do. So let me tell you. And there goes, and now the volcano erupts. Instead of doing that, hey, we really need to get this done. Okay, honey, what about getting that done today is important to you? And then your spouse can puke out why it's so important. So then you could follow up with something like, how can we accomplish that but still get these 3 things done that are on my plate? Now she's going to go, well, how can we get that done? She's going to solve the problem for you. So even though I have things that I think may or be more important, by learning these skills and going, what is important about that to you? because I don't want to make an assumption. Maybe there really is a good reason. She's going to articulate what about that is so important and why it needs to get done. And then if I say, well, how can we get these other things done and still accomplish what you need done? Now she's going to look at it and be like, well, I guess we just don't have enough time to do it all. Okay, so what's most important? It changes the dynamic of the communication. So I won't dive deeper on this one right now, but I will say a how or a what question. Another one is, let's use an example of something that we're on a lake and people will have wakeboard boats, and sometimes that'll get talked about. Wakeboard boats. So you could have someone be like, wakeboard boats are the worst boats in the world. If I love wakeboard boats, I could immediately start arguing with that person, or I could say this. How so specifically? When I say how so specifically, now they got to get specific. And they might come up with 50 different reasons. They might come up with 2 reasons. And maybe what they're saying isn't even true. Well, wakeboard boats waste all this gas. Well, according to whom? Well, my friend's cousin's dog's roommate, that used to live with in college, they said it once. Oh, so literally you don't know what you're talking about. So how so specifically question will get down to the root of what is specific, that's specifically important or causing that emotion. And then according to whom can be a follow-up question of like, well, where did you learn that? I'm not being condescending. I just want to know, because maybe that person has really good information. So how so specifically, according to whom, what about that is important to you?
How about the always and never?
Yeah, people will generalize always, never. Yeah.
So if I'm yelling at the kids, you guys always leave a mess in the sink, they will now respectfully go, always?
We always do that, Mom?
We always do that, Mom?
So when you do this one though is key, that you literally got to say it inquisitively, like it's a question. Always? Like that always happens? This is where tone of your voice and the physicality is even more important, like extremely important. Because like if you're like, yeah, I always do that. Yeah, all right, okay. Now it's just the conflict's gonna raise. But especially with kids, if kids are given the freedom to say, well, I always do that. We never do that, Mom. We never pick up our clothes. Okay, what's
not true. I've just completely generalized and labeled them and basically insulted them for, unnecessary reasons.
But most of us don't. I don't know anybody that was raised to speak this way. If we could teach this in school to kids, and then generationally, 2-3 generations down the road, the world would look a lot different because we would be able to talk about our emotions, how we're feeling, what's bugging us, instead of just modeling the way our mom or dad communicated, or the person that most had the biggest effect on you when you were a kid, because that's usually who you're going to model. So in that moment when Sarah says something like, you guys always leave your dishes in the sink, what she really wanted to say was, hey guys, I'm really tired. I cooked an amazing dinner for everybody tonight. I've cleaned up the house. It would mean a lot to me if you could simply take your dishes from the sink and put them in the dishwasher. But most of us, when that moment happens and I see all the dishes in the sink, the bear gets poked and the fangs come out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you know that you're not that person that can articulate how you feel emotionally super effectively, and look, I don't care how good I think I've been told. Would you agree I'm a pretty effective communicator?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So Sarah's told me that. I've been shared with that, but I still mess this up. I still do those things. But knowing it, it's really no different than somebody that you hear go, oh, and then like we were talking and he like brought over the thing, and then like we were like, oh my God, it was like the greatest thing, like really.
Yeah.
And you look at the person and go, if you say like one more time, but you don't know them that well, so you're not going to say anything, or they have the ums. That was me years ago. And Sarah pointed it out to me. Nick, do you realize how many times you just said in a 3-minute conversation? And I was like, no. But if you know these tips and tricks, these small tools, even if your spouse, your kids have a lot of emotional intensity right now, simply changing these patterns of communication and using these tools are going to shift the emotional energy in your home. Mm-hmm. I'll do sessions with clients, the mental margarita sessions, and I'm still by the end of it sharing these tips with them, because you're going to be way less triggered than you were before. So you're able to sit in the pocket and hear the person communicate. Mm-hmm. But maybe I didn't get to work with your spouse or your teenage children yet. And even if I have, these tools do nothing but make your household much calmer. It's pretty comical. We'll have friends over or adults will come over, and our kids will sit at the table and they'll engage them in conversation.
Mhm.
And the person might say something like crazy about something in the world today, right? Pick something, politics, religion, doesn't matter. And our kids will go, how so specifically? And the adult in the room's like, what did you just say to me, little child? And they're like, yeah, when did you first decide that? And they're like, what just happened? And then they're like, according to whom? And these adults are like, what are you doing to these kids? We're like, they're in the CIA. It's like, it's the children division of
negotiators when they're older.
yeah. But it works. It brings that intensity down and it allows people to feel heard, seen, and it allows you to move people to action in a healthy, loving way that's genuine, not artificial, not fake,
I
not
think you can have actually true conversations, deeper
yeah.
connection, because you're not shutting someone down at the first comment they make by asking a why question or dismissing or being sarcastic. That's where we see a lot of the communication
Yeah.
struggling.
I want to hit one more when it comes to the kids, one more thing that I've seen, and then kind of shift to us, and then we'll wrap it up. But the kids, something I've seen a lot in the last several years is parents that will struggle when it comes to the communication with their children, and or maybe they had a kid that was in a really tough way. I've worked with a lot of parents who have had children that were suicidal, cutting, anger outbursts, and when you do the emotional work and you're getting rid of traumas and emotions, there's then a reset that has to happen because there's no worse place than being a parent and you're like worried, is my kid going to kill themselves? What's going to happen? Are they just going to get angry and leave and I don't know where they went? So a lot of fear gets kicked up. Kids crave consistency and structure. So if you can bring these communication patterns down, and let's say you have a kid that is when they don't get their way, they act out really intensely. They could throw a fit, they could throw something. Number one, in those moments, the last thing I would do is give in that moment, but I would give them that option. Hey, this behavior is going to stop, can stop, and we're going to have a calmer conversation and there's not going to be much consequence, or this can continue anymore. And your phone, your car, the TV, the whatever it is gonna be gone for an amount of time, and I'll decide when you get it back. I wouldn't even put a timeline on it because sometimes we box ourselves in a corner. We're really angry and like, it's gonna be gone for a month, and then you're like, okay, that was a little heavy. So just be calm, cool, collected, and give them the choice. Keep acting like this or don't act like this. You choose, but if you choose, you get the consequence. Again, I'm not telling them what they need to do. I'm not telling them they need to calm down. Have I always done this perfectly? Heck, no. I messed this up so many times, especially earlier on. I feel bad for Haley and Emma because they did not get the best version of me. The kids nowadays, because we hold each other accountable, they get a much different part of that. So if you do get to that point where you can start communicating better and be consistent with your kids, to letting them know, I think I heard Pastor Stephen Armstrong say this one time, that is with his kids, something that he would say to them is, just because you did the wrong thing, don't expect me to do the wrong thing too. And what that means is, okay, I tell you that, okay, you lost your car, you lost your phone, and look, for the next week, if I don't see this behavior anymore, you get it back. And then on the last day before they're supposed to get it back, they do something wrong, and you're like, sorry, there's another week. And they'd go ballistic, be like, well, don't expect me to do the wrong thing and go back on my word because you went back on your word. It's like, it's not good. They might not like it in the moment, but they're going to respect it. And then they're going to learn. It's going to change that pattern. And changing patterns when you've been communicating for a while and there's been an emotional intensity in your house is not an overnight thing. So give yourself some grace, give your kids some grace. This isn't about being perfect overnight. It's just, again, we're trying to give you guys some tools that are very effective in this anxiety, mental health space that is, we've seen to be very impactful in our home.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to husband-wife stuff, a lot more of the spouse stuff, is there anything that you feel, and I want you to be really honest, when it comes to us, speaking from a woman's perspective, what are some things that you felt early on that you struggled with me, where my communication wasn't super good or effective?
So by nature, you would shut down. If you were frustrated or resentful, you would get very quiet and body language that would scream, I'm angry, but I'm not going to say anything. It would make me so uncomfortable. That was kind of your MO when things were not going well. And that was tough because then communication just stops. Like if one partner just literally is done and not having a conversation and leaves the room or sits somewhere on their own, you can't communicate. And I was equally high and yelling and probably saying too many emotional words to his being quiet. So neither one of us were helping each other when we were both carrying resentment.
So let's say you did something and I got really quiet. How's the way that you could have undone that in that moment? What's something you could have said to me?
How can I make this better for us?
Do you hear that, folks? That sounds nuts, but it works. Because I might still be I'm feeling a lot of emotion, but I'm being quiet. But if she says, how can I make this better for us? If she says it genuinely, even though she's amped up too, I'm like, dang, man, I don't know. Could you lighten up a little bit? Could you just did it as long as she can stay quiet for a second in the pocket, and then I'm like, can you lighten up? Could you relax? Can you just go easy? Could you love me once in a while? Whatever it is. What about that is important to you, Nick? Well, I just feel like that. Then it's gonna ultimately where you're driving to is what's the emotion I'm feeling? Why am I feeling that way? And then she can do the same thing back. Hey, yes, I'll work on that. Can I share with you how I feel in these kind of moments? By that point, I'm ready to listen. So if she's the most intelligent person in the room in that moment because she's using these tools, she can get me ready to listen. So I'd say if you're at home with your spouse, which one of you is the better communicator? If neither one of you are great communicators, just sit down before when things are great and say, okay, going forward, let's try these things that we're hearing Nick and Sarah talk about right now. Let's implement the how question. We even took scripture from First Corinthians. Love is patient, love is kind, it's not arrogant, it doesn't boast, it doesn't hold a record of wrongs, it's not easily angered, it always hopes, always protects. Probably messed that up. Probably messed it up a little bit, but we literally took that scripture, shared it with the kids, and we sat down as a family and said, if we don't live up to this expectation, if we're off, you kids have permission to ask us, how is that patient? How is that loving? How is that kind? Are you holding a record of wrong? Are you being resentful or angry about something in the past? And it would recenter you so quickly where it'd be like, wow, you're right. I'm not being patient. I'm not being kind. And you can't even argue with it.
If I can even summarize that, we sometimes use just the shorter version, which is, are you trying to be helpful or hurtful? And asking that in a genuine way, because sometimes words get said and it's in a cutting tone or a little of that sarcasm when that used to be there. And it immediately resets the energy of it. I go, oh, you're right. I was not trying to be helpful. So I need to rephrase the way I'm communicating with the kids.
Yep.
Or with them, with each other.
And that is actually a very specific term too with somebody that's passive aggressive. I hear this with a lot of friends and clients when they'll bring up their parents. So these are people, adults. They're like, oh my God, my mother or my father. Oh, it'd be really nice if you came and visit us. If you hear that from a parent and you're getting the guilt trip, I could either do what about that is important to you, mom or dad? Or, hey, are you trying to be helpful or hurtful? Oh, it'd be really nice if you visit us once in a while. Are you trying to be helpful? They can't say they're trying to be helpful. Because if they say, well, I'm just trying to be helpful. Well, how so specifically? I want us together as a family. Oh, okay. Well, again, what about that is important to you? Well, it's ultimately what mom's feeling or dad's feeling is like, I miss you. I want to spend more time with you. I feel like you're caught up in the world. And can we just spend some time? Say that, right? We think that, but they can't. So if they can't, they've been communicating this way for the last 60, 70 years of their life. How do I get them ready to listen? And it's by being the smartest person in the room when it comes to this specifically. So if you at least know how to bring that emotional temperature down with people that are passive aggressive, are you trying to be helpful or hurtful is a great one to use. Mm-hmm. Because people that are passive aggressive actually avoid conflict. They don't want conflict. And here's the truth. If you're thinking and you're pointing the finger at somebody right now and you're like, oh yeah, it's this person, it's that person, I got news for you. We all do this. We all do this at times. Some people do it hard and heavy, right? All the time, because they are so emotionally jammed up. They got enough funk in the trunk that they just can't just sit down and tell you how they're feeling. The people that have the most comfortability expressing their emotions are generally the people, in my opinion, that are probably going to do this the least, because they're just going to come and tell you how they're feeling, which is really what you're not doing. You know, if Sarah's always taking care of the kids and the dogs and the house, and I'm like, yeah, it'd be nice if you spend some time with me. How about this? Hey, honey, I feel pretty lonely and I miss you. I feel like we're so busy, and I know that you're helping the kids and you're focused on them, but can we spend some time together? Could we do something together? Like that change of, instead of being like, yeah, it'd be nice if we could spend some time together. All that does is dig that rut deeper. It's like driving a muddy truck, a truck through a muddy field, and you're staying in the same path over and over again. The ruts just get deeper and deeper. Somebody at some point has got to go, hey, we're going to get out of these ruts and we're going to get on the concrete. We're going to start driving down the road. And that's checking your pride, checking your ego, and going, I don't care, I'll be the first one to do it. Because the reality is, you should want peace, happiness, and cohesion in your family more than you want to be right.
Well, power of life and death is in the tongue, right?
Yep.
I bite my tongue a lot and say that prayer to myself. So more than I ever used to. Bite your tongue, Sarah. Sometimes it's better not to say anything at moments.
Well, I think you say more things that are different, like more bad things to yourself than you ever say to other people. So I think I would use what you just said there to, what's the self-talk you have? I suck, I'm awful, I'm a horrible mom, I'm a horrible dad, I never do anything right. Like if you literally say to yourself, I never do anything right, you should literally say back to yourself, you never do anything right? Well, you can even do this to yourself.
We could probably do a whole nother episode on self-talk.
We could, yeah, but you know, all in all, this conversation, it's been brought up so many times, and people think that we're geniuses or wizards when we say this stuff. And the reality is, this is things that we've learned through the life of hard knocks. And my grandfather would always say, you know, wise people learn from other people's mistakes. Fools learn from their own mistakes. We're all fools at certain times. But I want to be the wiser person, so I want to learn from other people's mistakes. So we're trying to share where we've made mistakes and the things that we've picked up along the line that can help you. So, you know, from our family to yours, and from love and grace, we truly hope that this episode brings a little bit of clarity and or some nuggets that can help you, your children, your family, your parents.
Some tools to try, you know?
Yeah, heal the family. I just think it's super important, and life's short. And as one of my friends said, her husband would say, I'm not here for a long time, I'm here for a good time. So if we're going to have a good time, the better we get along, and the more we love each other, the better it goes. So appreciate you guys, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.